Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining on this very sunny day. Just going to give it a couple of moments so most of you guys can join, and then we'll get started. We're just running a couple of moments behind. Okay, I think that sounds good. So I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker today. We've got Kanchanabja Das. He has been teaching Krishna philosophy in universities and sanghas for the last 20 years. As well as that, he's a chartered accountant. He's also spent some time in India. He spent some time at the Bhaktivedanta ashram, and he's currently tutoring graduates to help them on their chartered accountancy journey. So that's a little bit about our guest speaker. And on top of that, he also gets time to do trampolining with his incredible daughters. So not sure how he fits everything in, but he manages to do all of that. So hello, Kanchanabja Das. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you for inviting me to come.
Well, thank you for joining us today. How's your day been so far?
Yeah, it's good. I had the day off work, so it was nice. I got to realign myself, went for a nice walk in nature, went
Nice.
for a nice mocha at Costa decaf. So, yeah, no, it's been a nice day. Yeah.
Perfect. Did you manage to do any trampolining today or?
No, not today. They were at school, so I took them for Costa after school. So yeah.
I'll let you off then. So, I've got some questions. So I was hoping that maybe I could start off with some of my questions, and then we can, if the audience has any questions, if you want to share them at the end, that will be perfect. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Perfect. So we know a little bit about you spending time in India, you spent time at the Mana Ashram. Can you tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey? Like, how did it all start?
Oh, yeah. Um, I think when it comes to spiritual life, it's really interesting, isn't it? How did it start? Because we often um, there's so many other subtle things that go on, like
Yeah.
when we're younger, that we don't even perceive at the time or really realize at the time, that's playing such a important role in who we're becoming.
Absolutely.
So I think when I was really young, like when I was a young child. I remember going to my grandmother's house. They
Mhm.
they were babysitting us, and I remember they were watching the Ramayana. It was like a video of the Ramayana, which is the pastimes of Lord Ram, one of the incarnations of the Lord. And I remember watching with them. I think it was one Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. Some, and I was really young, and I remember just watching it, thinking, wow, this is amazing. And I didn't understand anything because it was all in Hindi and we don't speak Hindi. Um, and so, but I just remember thinking, this is amazing. This is just wow. And it felt like really uplifting. And I remember going home saying to my mum and dad, we need to start watching this. Like they're on episode 12, and but we need to watch this. And I remember that we just got hooked. Like we just got episode one, and now the second one, the third one. So I think that when I was a young child gave me some kind of inclination towards there being a divine Lord, there being God, there being someone who's up there watching over me. But then when I turned around 19, I think that's when um, yeah, I think there was many different things going on in my life which was difficult. And I think one of them was my grand my auntie, my kaki, my dad's brother's wife, my auntie.
Mhm.
She got diagnosed with cancer, and she was only 40 at the time. And I was having so that was one thing going on, and the other thing was my education at university. I mean, I was doing a course I really shouldn't have been doing. I was just like I was doing a course that I really didn't like, and it was just like everything just seemed to be totally wrong. Life just seemed to be like asking too many questions. And I remember when my aunt got diagnosed with cancer, she was 40, 41, I think, 40 years old. She had two young kids. And I just thought, this is too much. This is not fair. She's got two young kids. So I needed some answers. I was really desperate to get some answers. And that's when I think I started visiting Bhaktivedanta Manor in Watford. Um, and yeah, and I guess I started to visit, started to chant, which is this one way of just doing some meditation to try
Yeah.
and um, to try and really calm my brain and my nervous system down.
Mhm.
And then slowly, as the years went by, I started reading more, understanding more, getting more in tune with the philosophy. And well, yeah, and then and then when we turn towards divinity, then there's something deep that goes on within the heart that can't really be explained in words. It's kind of experienced. And I
Yeah.
think those experiences just made me want to, yeah, change what was going on in my life in many different ways and pursue a spiritual path, pursue a spiritual journey.
Okay.
Mm.
So you mentioned that like initially when you were younger, it was watching the Ramayana on TV at your grandparents' house. What was it about watching the Ramayana that made you be like, I want to find out more, like, and how young were you at the time?
Age-wise, I'm guessing. I think I was around 8 or 9, roughly.
Okay.
I think I
Okay.
was that. I was like 7, 8, 9, something. Hold on, wait, no, it was before 1918. It's around 7, probably. Yeah, it was about
Wow.
7.
Okay.
7, 8 years. Yeah, 7-ish. And I think I can't really put a thing on what was it exactly, but it
Mm,
felt like it was something just watching. I mean, if I think about that first time when I watched, I remember this scene, and just when I remember this scene, I just remember there just being the goodies and the baddies. Like there was there was Ram, and there was his wife Sita who'd been kidnapped, and they were trying to find her. I think that was roughly where they were in the in the series which they were watching. And I think just watching it, I personally think that the soul was just reawakening something. When I look back, I think the soul was remembering something it may have heard or seen in a previous life, because it felt very natural. Just that inclination just felt very, very natural. Like, whoa, this is just something I just need to get back to. Like, it just felt like a homecoming. And yeah, and then I remember going home, and I remember before we knew it, we were ahead of my grandparents, because it was just like every time the one finished, we had went back, and then it got to a point where we were ahead of when the cassettes were coming out. So I think like when by the time we got to episode 15, you have to wait until 16 is being released in England, and then you finish that, and then you have to wait, and it's like the agony of separation. When's the next one coming? And I tell my mom, did you go to the video shop? Is it out yet? Is the next one out? Um,
Well,
yeah. So it was yeah. I think the Ramayana in many ways is really seeing it as a young kid, and even now, I think it's a really amazing story of how when we are pursuing life, when we are going through the trials and tribulations of life, are we really always willing to do the right thing, without wondering, without being too overly concerned with what others think of us? And I think the Ramayana shows that in so many ways, because if we really follow what's really right inside the heart, inside the soul, then many others may not understand. Many others may um, question us, not even question us, ridicule us.
yeah,
But it's so important to always do the right thing. And I think the Ramayana really teaches that in many different ways. But I think that really stands out to me now.
yeah. I
Mm.
love that chair of yours. I think that's such a beautiful way because sometimes things aren't explainable. Like you want to
Mm.
do something in a certain way, and people it might not make sense to others, but it completely aligns with you and it just makes sense. And when you're trying to then share your story, say no, but and people doesn't understand, it's really frustrating. But I think that that's the essence, isn't it? That's when we're struggling and we know that inner voice is telling us to do, and we're following that inner
Mm.
voice, and then all the barriers, all the Rabbi, all the struggles come your way, but you've got to continue to be like, no, my inner voice is sharing this, and this is the step I want to take. So
Yeah,
that's a really
yeah,
beautiful share. So no,
yeah. No, it's interesting what you said about the inner voice. Yeah. How
yeah.
do you hear that your inner voice? It'd be nice to.
Oh, I guess like
Is it meant to be just you doing the question? Sorry.
it's fine. I guess you could also ask. I guess for me, it's when you're facing a situation and a part of you wants to do one thing, but then the other part is saying, no, this is what you should do. And
Mm.
that voice is always quieter. The correct
Right.
voice, I feel like, is always quieter. But then deep
Mm.
down, it feels like, but if you for me, I guess I'm a long-term thinker. So then I go through the whole scenario and be like, well, long-term, and then always be like, well, if I was in that situation, I'd want this to happen. And then I
Right.
kind of can hear that voice a bit more loudly
Mm,
in my case.
mm,
That's how I've
mm.
always been able to
Yeah, it's
hear
very
that
sweet.
voice a bit more
Yeah.
louder when I flipped it and said, okay, well, let's put it on me. How would then I'm able to hear that voice louder. What about
Wow.
you? Like how do you
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. Just hearing the voice that's quieter. The louder one is usually the mind.
yeah,
The one that wants to torment us and tell us how rubbish we are.
yeah.
But that inner voice, that quieter voice, um, and I guess all of us have different personalities, and if we can just kind of try and tune into our intuition and see how it feels, and also check in with others. There's a wonderful system that the Vedic teachings give us, which is check in with the teachers, the
Mm,
spiritual teachers, check in with the spiritual peers, and check in with what the scriptures say. And if that inner voice is in line with the teachers, the spiritual peers, and the scriptures, then maybe we are hearing that inner voice. Maybe we are hearing the voice that is calling for something deeper, calling for us to take that next step, which others may or may not understand. You used the word frustrated, Madhuri. I remember I heard you say it feels frustrating. Maybe you,
yeah.
you can also share what that means to you. Like what is frustrating when others say something and
I guess because when you're going through a situation and you know like this is what I want to do, but someone else is like, yeah, but you should do this, and that
mm,
would be the right way. And then, but you're like, but no, like my like deep down, like this is what I want to do. This feels right to me. But then someone else is like, no, but you tried that last time and it didn't work, or but they'll come up, but then it's like. I know it didn't work last time, but that's a different situation. This is a different situation. And this time I feel
mm,
like this. So I guess that's where the frustration comes in when you're trying to connect with someone, or even just sharing your thoughts, and it ends up being not as sharing your thought ends up being like you should do this, you should do that. I was like, no, I
yeah,
was just sharing my
yeah,
thoughts. I wasn't asking for
yeah. And
action.
isn't it a wonderful lesson that when that happens, we know and we can perceive how much we should share with who.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful lesson because
Yeah.
sometimes we have these experiences, and rather than letting that define us or letting that get us down, we just understand, okay, this is as far as I can take this
Yeah.
conversation with this person. No judgment on them, no
Yeah.
hating them, no disliking them. But
Yeah.
that's where they're at when it comes to me, and I'm cool with that. And
Yeah.
and then we just know how far we can take that conversation with a certain person, so that we can
Absolutely.
still thrive and allow them to thrive,
Yeah.
because we may also be blocking them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties in perfectly with your point about having spiritual peers and spiritual
Mm,
teachers, because those are the people you can turn to in these
yeah,
situations, because
yeah,
they will connect with you and they understand you deeply and correctly, almost to say, okay, and sometimes we might think that no, this is the right thing, but they'll say, no, you know deep down that isn't, and they can still guide you. So I think that's really beautiful. The next question that I had for you was our topic for today is spiritual success. What
mm.
exactly does spiritual success mean to you?
It's a big question. Do you ask everyone this, or is there a right or wrong
Every
answer?
week.
Is there a right or wrong answer?
I definitely think there is no right or wrong
You
answer.
know, when Arjun's on the battlefield, this is thing Gita, so maybe we could bring the Gita into this. So Arjuna's on the battlefield, and he's in an existential crisis. He's got this biggest dilemma. What do I do? Do I run away, because I want to protect my family, my extended family, or do I fight because my psychophysical nature is to be a protector? And as a protector, if we let the other side, which is the side of, if you like, evil, rule, then the whole empire, the whole world is going to be um, under the guidance of a tyrant. So he was in a bit of a crisis, and he just couldn't work out what to do. What would be the right thing to do, and then therefore what would be successful? And then he turns to his good friend Krishna. What a friend to have. So he turns to Krishna and he asks Krishna, and Krishna gives him lots of good counsel in that conversation. And one of the things he says to him is, "Look, Arjun, You've got to do the right thing, but at the same time, don't be attached to the results of what you're doing.
Mhm.
And in that sense, spiritual success, according to the Gita, or should we say one definition of spiritual success according to the Gita, is do the right thing as your identity, your real spiritual identity as a soul, and the soul is part and parcel of divinity.
Yeah.
So by understanding that you are a soul, part and parcel of divinity, do the right thing. Always seek what's the right thing to do. And then don't be attached to
Mm.
what the result of your activity is. And in that way, we can contribute, we can maximize our contribution without being um, overwhelmed, burdened, frustrated, angered
Mm.
when the result doesn't come our way, because we're just absolutely fine doing the right thing
Yeah.
according to our core identity. I
Yeah.
think that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but that's probably what comes to me.
I love that. I think it
Yeah.
just emphasizes the power of detachment, right? We can
Mm.
do what feels right to us and what is the right thing, but then not expect anything in return. Because sometimes it's like, I'll do this, then this will happen, then I'll get recognized, and then I'll get this at the end. But if we just take, and it's when your expectation is different to reality, that's when hurt comes in, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the way you've explained it of being able to detach from there, then you won't get that hurt because you've automatically taken yourself out of the equation. So,
Well, I think what you just said there is really amazing. That it's the expectation that causes hurt. If we think about relationship and why relationships don't work a lot of the time, whether it's spouse or siblings or parents and children or friendships, it's generally because there's a lot of expectation, and
mhm,
that expectation is not being met. And a lot of the time, it's because that expectation hasn't been expressed. And if there's nothing that's been expressed, then often what happens is we just live in our own world, and then other people just bug us, annoy us, frustrate us, and then we just lash out at the wrong time because we're just not expressing
mhm,
we're not expressing what's in there. So that does lead to frustration, and I think part of our spiritual success is if we are acting according to our core identity as a spirit soul, and that soul is part and parcel of divinity, and if we're always trying to act in that spiritual way, then often, most of the time, we will be, um, yeah, I think what I will say is not even often, pretty much all of the time, we will be ambassadors of goodwill to everybody.
mhm,
Some people may not understand it, which is why I was a bit hesitant saying everyone. But actually, the
mhm,
intention will be to be that ambassador of goodwill to everyone. And
mhm,
because some may not understand it, they may not see that, they may not hear it, they may not feel it. Um, but that's the essence of it. That actually a spiritualist, one who's spiritually successful,
mhm,
wishes well for everyone.
mhm,
Um, even and Krishna even says to Arjuna in the Gita, even if one makes you their enemy, don't make them your enemy.
mhm,
And when I heard this, I remember I was sitting with one of my friends, and I would say one of my spiritual teachers, who's like a friend. And I remember saying to him, if someone doesn't like me, and he finished my sentence for me, he says, you don't like them back. And I was like, oh, how did you know I was going to say that? He's like, I can tell. And that was such a moment for me because I was like, well, I know this about myself, but I can't believe you've worked that out about me. Because and I think over the years he's noticed when I say, oh wait, this person did this to me and that person did that to me. But that was such a shift, that conversation I had with one of my spiritual friends, teachers some years back. It was such a shift for me that if someone doesn't like me, I don't need to dislike them back.
mhm,
Because actually if we really think about it, that's kind of playing into the duality of this world. And if we want to be
mhm.
spiritually successful, we want to go beyond the duality of what's
Love
going on
that.
in this world.
I love that. I think that's such a beautiful way. Like, if someone doesn't like me, doesn't mean I don't have to like them back. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's really, like, yeah, I think that's
it's it's
awesome.
it's it's, it's often a thing we take from the childhood playground that we
Mm,
don't grow up from.
Yeah.
It's like we learn it in the playground when we're really young children, and
Yeah.
we don't really grow out of it a lot of the time. And
Mhm.
sometimes we do, but a lot
Yeah.
of the time you see people in their 70s and 80s still doing that. you know. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just one of those things that actually we when we read the Gita, that we
Yeah.
can really absorb the teachings in a way that actually takes us to another plane, to another realm of
Mhm.
existence. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. You've actually answered my next question, which I was going to ask you. That spirituality is essentially soul work. So why does success matter in this? We're talking about spiritual success, so why does it matter? But I think without asking that question, you've already answered it so beautifully that it's about doing more than what we have to do. It's about escaping the duality, and it's about spreading that love and kindness. Because
Mm.
if we don't have that measure and we're not making a conscious effort, then like if someone doesn't like us, we'll be like, I don't like them, and we'll just write them off as a person, and we don't make
Yeah.
a conscious effort to connect with them or anything. But I think this is why spiritual success matters, because your entire energy and your aura and the way you treat everyone changes, and that in turn changes your life. So spiritual success definitely matters. So that was my next question, which you already answered without me asking. So thank you very much. What I wanted to steer the conversation now is towards discipline. So spiritual success and discipline, many times we find it easy, for example, like blogging into work, doing your house activities, feeding children, those kind of activities, we manage to be strict with ourselves and we regularly commit to them. But when it comes to spirituality and spiritual practices, that's where I feel like it's difficult to be disciplined. It's easy to say, oh, I'm just exhausted. I'll do my meditation tomorrow. I'll do my chanting tomorrow. I'll do my reading tomorrow. It's one of the most important things, but everything else always seems to be more important in life and they always take over. So
Mm.
how can you help in this area? What can we do to be more self-disciplined, and how do we make spirituality more the center of our lives?
Mm. Yeah. Krishna says to Arjun, he says, Rasavajam rasapyasya param dishtra nivartate. He says to Arjun that you may get all these lower tastes, but when you get the higher taste, when you get the taste of spirituality, then we'll be able to give up these lower tastes, these other things, and really, it's spiritual life is not meant to be a drag. Spiritual life is not meant to be something else I've got to get done today. It's not that
Yeah.
it's like we add spirituality and now, oh my god, now I've got to feed the kids, and I've got to get to work, and I've got to cook, and I've got to go to this thing, this wedding on Friday, and I've got a chant, and I've got to read. It's like we just add, and it's just like we add more things to our list, and then it's like, why practice spiritual life? Because it's just more things on my list. There's
Yeah.
more things. Um, but actually, if we get the taste, and actually, spiritual life is about getting a taste, and that taste is a connection with the Lord. And Krishna says to Arjun after a while in the Gita that, what, at the beginning is kind of like, and kind of like what we're doing in this podcast is, connect with divinity, connect with spirituality, and then Krishna just says to him, look, Arjun, I'm just going to get to the point. You got to connect with me. You got to hook up with me. You got to connect with me, because if you hook up with me, you connect with me, your life is going to be supremely happy. Susukam kartam avyaham. He says you're going to be fully joyous. You're going to be devotional life is meant to be joyfully performed, happily performed. That's how it's meant to be. So how to really make this the priority, and how to, I would often say, if we wake up in the morning, what's the first thing we're thinking of doing? Now, if we wake up in the morning and the first thing we're doing is checking our email because we want to see what happened at work, or if the first thing in the morning is just setting the alarm clock in time so we get ready to go to work, or just get ready in time to drop the kids, then what's naturally going to happen is we're going to be chasing the day. It's just like we're just chasing, and there'll never be a time for us. And and if we wake up in the morning just to start our day in a spiritual way, just start our day, whether it's picking up a book and reading it for 10 minutes, or whether it's picking up some beads and chanting for 10 or 15 minutes. But if we just start our day aligning ourselves with our core identity, because what's happening is when we wake up in the morning running around after our bodily identities, whether it's I'm a father, I'm an accountant, whatever the different identities we have in this world, which are also very important. Um, but if we start our day with those, then generally what happens is we just keep our day will stay with those.
Mm.
Um, but if we start our day with us with a connection with our spiritual identity, okay, then what naturally starts to happen is our day continues to be spiritually blessed, and we carry out all these other duties, all these other things that we need to do that day with a lot more love, attention, and focus. So and then it doesn't feel like a drag. It just feels like something we want to do. I want to chant because by chanting I'm connecting with Krishna. I want to read because by reading I manage to understand what this world is about and where I can be. I can be in the spiritual world. Whoa, there's another place. Just really understanding what is spiritual reality. We feel like connecting with other spiritually like-minded people. When we meet our family, we can see them in a spiritual way. We may not even ever talk about spirituality with our extended family if we meet them, but we just see them in that way. Then we can love them in that way. Um, so yeah, I think I've gone again. You have to kind of stop me because I could just go on and on.
No, I think that's
But
that's
but
beautiful. So
I
beautifully
think that's
said.
yeah. But I think that's where I'd go. Just if we start our day with just a little, if the day starts with a little bit of our own time with the Lord, our own time with Krishna, with divinity,
Yeah.
with our spiritual connection. That we have so many horizontal connections, but just making that time first thing with that vertical connection,
Mm.
then everything else just goes so nicely, and then it doesn't feel like a drag or a chore or just something I need to get done. If we just think about how many minutes we spend scrolling our phone, and if those minutes were just spent doing something spiritual, how our life would just change. I was thinking today, I was actually just thinking this today, that we spend 2 minutes, the dentist tells us, brush your teeth for 2 minutes. That's 30 seconds, 30 seconds. And imagine you didn't do that. Like, how would your
Mm.
day go?
Yeah, just it would feel odd and wrong and
It's
yeah,
like horrible, right?
exactly.
And it's just 2 minutes. But
Yeah,
those 2 minutes change your whole day.
yeah.
So just even if we spend 5 minutes first thing in the morning doing something spiritual, it just
Mm.
changes our whole day. It's actually it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. Just like 2 minutes of brushing teeth makes all the
Yeah,
difference to your day. 5 minutes of focused spiritual connection can really
yeah.
make a massive difference to what happens with the rest of the day.
I love that. So not only is it about the higher taste, so it's about connecting. And once you have that higher taste, it's not going to be a tick box exercise. It's not going to be
Mm,
I've done my meditation, I've done my chanting, I've done my reading. It's something you want to do. So it's about the higher taste. And on top of
yeah.
that, it's about spending that quality time and not quantitative time. So it's not necessarily like you just said, the 2 minutes brushing our teeth changes the entire trajectory of your day. So spending 5 minutes quality, connecting, whether that's doing your reading, chanting, meditating, whatever works for you in your schedule and your routine. I think
Mm,
that's it. And then I guess adding on to that, I guess it's finding pockets of space throughout your day as well. So if you're going on a lunch walk, it's going for on a mindful walk at lunch
yeah.
rather than going on I'll scroll on my phone for the lunch
Mm, mm.
instead, right? I guess it's then making your day that bit more efficient by finding pockets, and then all those pockets add up, and you're living that spiritual life, not tick boxing it as you go along.
Yeah, and one thing that's really and one we can really experiment with this. If we put that effort in first thing in the morning,
Mm.
we'll see Krishna makes the rest of the day happen for us. It's like magical. Like, and I've noticed on days when I don't, it is like I'm chasing the day, and it is like, oh, I've got to get my chanting done. I do need to do a bit of reading. I need to get this done. I need to go on this podcast at 8 o'clock. All these things could be like that. But when our day is started really in the right way, then everything just happens, man. Everything just sort of, it just happens, and we can just see that actually something beyond my control is in control, and we can surrender to that, because often our big problem is just wanting to control everything.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. So on spirituality and on this topic, what is your favorite activity to do that makes you feel connected to Krishna, makes you feel connected to divine?
I think for me, my favorite activities are going early in the morning to the temple whenever I can. I think um, when I get myself to sleep early and wake up earlier, it's really beautiful going early in the morning, just seeing Krishna at the temple at that time, being with others at that time in the morning who really want to immerse themselves in a spiritual experience that is absolutely beyond this world. So I think that's one thing. And I think the next thing I would say is it's really important to engage our nature, our abilities, to do some spiritual contribution. So, for example, for myself, because I'm naturally like a teacher, I teach accounting. That's my job. So I've been teaching for like 15 years or something, and I teach accounting, and that's my nature to teach. So for me to teach Bhagavad-gita, to teach spiritual discourses, it feels very natural, and um, I feel very connected. I feel very connected to Krishna. I feel very connected to divinity when I do that, because I just feel like I'm engaging who I am with a spiritual contribution. And whoever we are, whatever we do, if we like graphic designing, if we like gardening, if we like cooking, we have so many different natures, but all those natures can be dovetailed to do some higher spiritual contribution. And I think part of this journey of, I mean, I can just go back a bit to your question about spiritual success, and connect that with your question now. A big part of our spiritual success is recognizing what our abilities are and recognizing what our abilities are not. And when we recognize what our abilities, what is the abilities that I have been given and in this life, and I want to, and use them in a way that we can contribute, and make peace with the things that are not. Just make peace with it. Try your best. Like, for example, I'll give one example. When I was in India, all of us, there's a few of us who went to India many years ago. We went traveling to stay in different ashrams in India, and I was trying to learn the mridanga, the drum, because I really wanted to learn how to play and sing. And then I was just like, I just realized I'm tone deaf. Like nothing was working. That side of my brain doesn't really it does. I don't think it's switched on this lifetime. It's not worked out. And I remember the teacher said to me, tomorrow you don't come. What? They said to me, you don't come. He was like, you've been trying all this time, you can't get the first beat, don't come. And he wasn't being rude, and I just felt like, okay. And it's like, gotta make peace with it. I gotta make peace with this. That musical thing is not for me. And when we can make peace with what's not really for us and what is for us, because Krishna has given us all unique talents, abilities that we can use in wonderful ways. And if we can accept what we don't have, and what isn't been destined for us in this life, then we can make peace with it. And we don't have to compare ourselves with others. Rather, just keep wondering, am I maximizing my potential? And if we're always maximizing our potential, and if we're always contributing according to our potential and trying to maximize it, one thing I have noticed is, no matter how much difficulty the world throws on us, our life throws on us, destiny has for us, and we all have it. We all have difficulties, because that's part of being in this world. But that really keeps us going. It really keeps us going, and it keeps us going in such a way that actually these disturbances are just another way of going deeper into our contribution.
Yeah, think that's so beautiful. I love the way you explained how it's about finding out your true nature and then finding a way of using that and making that spiritual. I've have kind of almost offering that in a way, kind of finding the right angle. And I
Yeah.
think that's just so beautiful. It's such a lovely way. My main service is social media. I
Oh,
love being
really?
creative. I love
Oh,
designing. I love
wow.
creating. So for me, that's my service. And just like you said, I think previously working in finance, it was very different because I never got to be creative, but now I do, and
Wow.
it's the perfect, like exactly what you said. It's about finding yourself and then it being able to use that in service or whatever it may be. And I think that's just so beautifully said. So I guess ultimately
Mm.
it's connecting with yourself to know your true nature and then using
Yeah.
in it for
So is
higher.
this your day job as well? You do
Yeah, that's what I do also as my day job now. So
amazing.
yeah, that's
Amazing.
changed. But no, I love that. Thank you very much for sharing. My last question is if you had the ability to make laws,
Make
make
laws.
laws,
Laws.
yeah,
Yeah.
look like laws,
Oh my
rules,
God.
what would be the one spiritual practice that you would enforce that everyone does?
Oh my God. If I could make laws,
Yeah.
like it's a law. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's a law that everyone has to do it. So what would you want everyone to do? If they could one thing that they could do to step on their spiritual journey.
I think if every day someone went to a kirtan,
I love that. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I think, or like the law could be even if once a week you went to a kirtan once a week and you were together with others
Yeah.
and you were chanting the names of the Lord once a week, every week without fail. Um, at times I'm in a kirtan and it's like I could have had an argument with someone or I could have some disagreement with someone and
Yeah.
you're in the kirtan, you're chanting the names of the Lord, and you look at that person and you think, how
Yeah.
can I not like you? You're here, I'm here, we're chanting together, and
Yeah.
everything just goes because actually we realize that there's something more than what's going on here day to day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that would be a law. Once a week we should go for kirtan. Yeah,
Love that.
yeah,
Definitely. I think Kirsten is super magical and super powerful. If you're exhausted or tired or anything, but you go to Kirsten, you come back so energized.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you're ready for like a whole nother day. And it's like it's the end of the day, but I've got energy to keep going because that's how powerful it is. So
yeah.
for
It's
sure, I think when you want it calms you down if your mind is busy, but when you want it energizes you, ready for your next activity. Like
mm,
and I love how it's adaptable to the person because a person might need some calming down mentally, then it calms them down. But that person sitting next to them needs energy because they've got a task
yeah, yeah, yeah,
after,
yeah. Amazing.
and it fires them up ready for their next task. And I
So
love how
spotted. Yeah, wow.
the same people in the room, each person has a different kind of their own takeaway because that's what they
Mm.
needed and it's tailored to them. And I love how we could be the same Kirtan, but one person's super mellowed out, the other person's ready to
Yeah, ready to jump.
ready to take
Yeah,
over. So
yeah. No, it's really beautiful, I think. Yeah. And again, maybe I'll just say something again with my own experience is um and related to your earlier question, which is now coming to me because we're speaking about kirtan. Um, at times in life, we will be playing a big role and contributing in a big way, or being the main person. Like for example, right now, I'm the person being interviewed. It's like, whoa, you know. And when I go to a kirtan, like I told you, I have no musical ability, but I love going there and just sitting there and just being part of the kirtan. And so, and again, it just comes back to our spiritual success being, if we can accept what we have, what we've been given, and try and maximize that as our contribution,
mm,
and then come back to this other piece here, which is even if it's not our big contribution, but if we can play a supporting role in someone else's contribution,
yeah.
then that is a massive part of our connection with the Lord.
Mm,
And I'll just go back to the Ramayana when when the monkey army was building a bridge to
Yeah.
go to Lanka to find Sita,
Yes.
and these monkeys were bringing these big boulders. There was little there was a squirrel. There was a squirrel, and they were just putting tiny pebbles. And the monkeys were kind of thinking, "Oh, what are you doing? Get out my way! We've got these big boulders we're taking, and you've got these little pebbles. These little pebbles are not making a difference really in this big bridge we're trying to build from South India to Sri Lanka."
Yeah.
And Ram said, these squirrels are serving me to the best of their capacity.
Mm.
They're playing a little supporting role, but
Yeah.
that little supporting role meant as much to Ram as those big, big boulders that the monkeys were carrying.
Yeah.
So whether we are the main act
Mm.
or whether we are in doing the supporting role,
Yeah.
if we do our spiritual activity, if we carry out our spiritual activity with um, deep intention, an intention to connect with the Lord, an intention to connect with our spiritual self,
Mm.
and an intention to connect with Krishna, then that intention, that consciousness will really uplift us.
Mm.
But if we're performing any activity, and it could even be service, but if we're performing it with an intention to seek validation, to seek praise, to seek honor,
Yeah.
then it will never feel enough,
Mm.
and it will never feel uplifting.
Yeah.
And it'll always feel, go back to the word you started with, Madhuri, frustrating.
Yeah.
So I think part of our spiritual life is accepting this. Where's my talents? This is
Mm.
my success, sorry, my spiritual success. Where's my talents? Let's contribute maximum. Where am I going to be a supporting role? Let me also do those things. Let me just do those. Let me just support where I can support. Um, and and recognizing everything with deeper intention. One example I heard was someone could be giving a class, someone could be giving um, someone could be giving a spiritual talk. Like right now, we're having a spiritual conversation. So we could
Yeah.
be having a spiritual conversation. And if I'm doing this particular podcast with you right now, and if my intention in this podcast right now is because I want all the praise of everyone else here, I want everyone to say thank you and Kanchanabja, you're amazing, you've changed my life. If that's the reason I'm doing this, then I'm not really going to connect. But
Yeah.
someone listening may have heard one thing today that makes them feel so connected to Krishna, then that person is actually going to make more spiritual advancement than the speaker.
Yeah.
So it's all about the intention and the consciousness and how we are trying to connect with divinity, not
Mm.
about the actual big action that we may be doing or the small action we may be doing. It's the intention and consciousness in how we want to become more and more soft-hearted in that devotion.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a beautiful way. You summarized our entire talk as well. But my favorite point that I want to just touch on was what you mentioned about being a side act and also
Mm,
doing that with so much love, devotion, and kindness. Because sometimes it's easy to be in a side role and say, well, it's not my main gig, so I can just maybe just kind of stand here for the sake of standing because it's not really I'm not gonna be seen. I don't matter. But doing it
mm,
with that kindness and giving that person 100% of your support, then they can excel. And that feeling is so beautiful. Like when you
mm.
supported someone like that, you haven't gained anything, but you've just given them a tap on their back and it's made a huge difference to them. But that feeling that you have, it's so special. Like it's so much more nicer than I stood here because he needed me to stand here and that's me done. And I think
Yeah.
that feeling that you walk away with is so much more nicer than,
Mm,
oh, I've just had to stand here and okay, there we go. Now I can go home. Like
yeah.
it's such a different energy. But yeah, I think the way you explained it, of even if you're supporting someone else, to do that wholeheartedly. So I think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful takeaway. So no, thank you very
Well,
much.
no one knows that squirrel's name, but that squirrel was very pleasing to Ram. So,
Mm,
and that's it. We
that's
may
all
not,
that matters.
yeah,
Yeah.
we may not be standing out sometimes here. Someone may not have noticed us here, but
Yeah.
but the Lord doesn't miss anything, doesn't miss a trick.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, thank you so much. Well,
Thank
on that
you.
note, that's the end of my questions. I want to open it up to the
Oh,
floor.
sure.
Is there anyone else who's got any questions that they'd like to ask? So yeah, if you would like to just, you can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can drop it in the chat, whichever you feel comfortable with. It'll be nice to see people actually if you're able to unmute and ask your question. So, yeah, moment. Everyone's meditating on what you're sharing, so I'm sure we'll get some questions in a moment. Um, yeah, whilst people are thinking, we had a comment earlier, didn't we? What did we have? Agree. So Nikki said agree. The old Ramayan series is still very engaging. So
Mhm.
it's still connecting at this day and age. So that's very positive to hear. It's still connecting with everyone. So thank you, Nikki, for sharing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think I haven't seen it for so many years. I might, now that we're talking about it today,
Yeah.
might try and find it. Yeah.
Yeah, I often social media, so I often randomly see clips of bits
Uh,
of it
the old
online.
one? The old
Yeah,
one?
the old one. Yeah,
Oh,
you'll
wow.
still see random clips here now and then. So we've got a question from Snehal. If you'd like to unmute yourself, please.
Kanchanabja, thank you very much for that talk. It was really, really interesting, actually. I love some of the points you made, but this point you made about the squirrel and how he's nobody knows his name, but he's important to Ram. That's so important because sometimes it is very easy to, when you're doing some kind of service, to feel like you need to be acknowledged by people, and uh, unless everyone knows that you're doing it, it doesn't really count. But I remember Kesha Swami once, a couple of times, has said that if you really want to find out where you are in your spiritual life, then go away and do a service somewhere where nobody can see you and nobody knows that you're doing it, and see how you
Mm,
feel about yourself. And that will really tell you about where you are and who you are.
Mm.
So it kind of reminded me of that,
wow.
what you were saying earlier just now.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because it's and we feel it in the heart, and in our heart we can feel when we do something for a higher purpose and when we're doing something for a lower purpose. It's actually tangible in the body. If we just check in with ourselves, we can, it's somewhere there, whether it's in the heart, the neck, depends where where our feelings generally go, but we can sense things. And um I like that example. Go and do something where no one knows, no one sees you. And how do we feel? Yeah. How do you feel when after he did that? Did you do the experiment?
I did do it, yeah. And
Well, now you haven't now because you told us.
yeah, that's right. I've just gone and spoiled
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
all that hard
You
work.
gotta go do it again now. No, but
But on the flip side of that, I just, if I can just mention that when I first did any service at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, when I first decided I wanted to do service, that I went to speak to somebody about it, and I was asked, where would you like to do your service? And I can genuinely, honestly say that in my head, I was thinking, I want to be right there in reception because everyone can see I'm doing something. And then, but what came out of my mouth was what I should have said was wherever you need a volunteer
anything. Yeah.
most. And then the reply I got, and my heart just sunk because I was told, well, we need somebody out in the Goshala, which is like right on the other side of the
Yeah,
man. And
yeah,
I was thinking, well, nobody's going to see me there. And I thought, there you go. I've got my comeuppance for being, uh, you know,
yeah.
wanting all that.
Well, the cows see you and Krishna sees you, so that's
Yeah.
most important.
Well, at that point, I didn't realize how important that service was until people started telling me. Then I realized, wow.
Oh.
So there you go.
Thank you, Snail.
Oh, I love that share. Thank you so much. That's really beautiful. We've got some questions popped in whilst
Mm.
so so Mrinali is asking, so what if we miss chanting because of tiresome day? How to keep chanting? So I guess back to the being self-disciplined question. But yeah, any tips?
What to do if we miss chanting because of tiresome day? How to keep chanting?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but I would just, as a response to that, I would just, um, yeah, I would just say, just learn from what was it that made the day so tiresome, and just see the next day if we can. Every day is a different day, and we don't want to beat ourselves up about sometimes us having a bad day or a bit of a dip. The next day can be a different day, and we can learn from the day before. And what made it so tiresome was it that we a lot of the time when this happens to me, where I'm doing chanting late at night because I just kept thinking, okay, I'll do it after this, and then I'll do it after that, and then I'll do it after this, and then it does become a bit of a drag. But when we do it first thing in the morning, we do even if we do a little bit of chanting first thing in the morning, then the rest of the day will just feel like chanting. So I think that's one thing. I'm not sure if I fully understood the question, but I think that's the first things that come to mind. So
I like that. I like
yeah.
how you said to review the day rather than you need to work on your time. Like you said, review the day because it must be something in the day that triggered it. So I've always I like that way of looking at it rather than the other way. So that's really nice
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's good to be kind to ourselves because
Yeah.
well, something I heard recently, which I like, is we have to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. It's like when we're too comfortable, we need some affliction, and when we're too afflicted, we need to comfort ourselves. But if we go hard in when we're already feeling bad, then it's not going to help anyone.
No,
So,
sure, I
mhm.
like that one. So Nikki's asking, how does spiritual discipline seep into other areas of life?
How does spiritual discipline seep
Seep.
into other areas of life? I think spiritual discipline means that we understand our identity, our core identity. And if our core identity, and we can bring it back to what we were speaking about today, if our core identity is I'm part and parcel of divinity, and divinity, Krishna in the Gita, he says he is Suridam, he's Suridam, Sarva Bhutanam, which means he's the kind, well wishing, benevolent friend of all. So if we have that outlook on life, that if we're connected to Krishna, we're going to be kind and we're going to be well wishing to everyone. We don't want to have bad feelings with anyone. So if we have this kind of spiritual discipline, I'm going to connect with Krishna. And when I connect with Krishna, I'm going to be kind and loving to everyone, including myself. Often we forget ourselves in this, but it's also important that we're also kind to ourselves. And when we have that, and that means we'll have good relations with everyone. We genuinely want to serve everyone. How can we not be happy? How can we not feel fulfillment? How can we not feel joyous? All of this will come with all of that.
Yeah, so I guess spiritual discipline gives you that ultimate happiness, that happiness
Yes.
of supporting others, connecting with others. And I like what you said, like um it's always like treat others how you want to be treated. But many times we would never treat ourselves the way we treat others because we're just not as kind to ourselves as we are to others. We always neglect ourselves, but I think you flipped that really lovely, actually. So thank you. We've got a question from Neri. Would you agree that spiritual advancement is coming out of your struggles stronger in faith and more in love with God? Would you agree that spiritual advancement is coming out of your struggles stronger in faith and more in love with God? So,
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the one of the things we will notice as we spiritually advance is that we'll have more faith and more love in God. Yeah, one of the things we will notice and when we say what is spiritual advancement, um, I would just always want to qualify that with, or just have a disclaimer with that word, spiritual advancement. Are we deepening our connection, our loving connection with Krishna? We're not trying to achieve anything. I'm spiritually advanced. Yay. We really just want to have this loving, deep connection with someone who really loves us. And he says that to Arjun, you're like my best friend. I'll do, and then he tells Arjun, do what you want to do. After everything in the Gita, do what you want to do. And after he tells him, do what you want to do, Krishna actually tells him what to do. Why? Because his is an outpour of love. You know, so
Yeah.
Krishna has this outpouring of love towards us. So if we have this, if we have a way of just being able to receive all of that love from Krishna, then what will naturally happen is when we have our struggles, then of course we will feel Krishna's presence more. And of course we'll feel more in love with God. Of course we'll feel more faith towards him. So yeah, I do agree, but I just wanted to make sure I worded that right. So yeah, when questions come from the chat, we may not always understand the nuances to what's going on. So I just wanted to say it in that way. So, and anyone who did ask these questions, please do let us know if it made sense, or if you want to ask anything more, so that we can understand if we answered your question, because we may not have understood from the chat.
Absolutely. Just checking if there's any more. Don't think there's any more questions, but if any of the people who asked, if there's any follow-up questions or anything else you'd like to touch up on, please do ideally unmute yourself or drop us a message. Yeah. Yeah. Just going to give that a couple of moments. And yeah. I guess a question that I have, like following up from everyone else's questions. So when we're connecting with Krishna and we have that warm, what is that feeling for you? Like, how would you describe that feeling of connecting with Krishna? I was about to describe my feeling then, so I stopped. But how would
Yeah,
you
I
describe
think
your
I think
feeling?
I think I'd let you carry on with that, Madhuri.
This is your question.
Can you say it again? What's my feeling?
When you connect with Krishna, what's that feeling that you get? How do you feel when because it's all, like we said, spiritual advancement. You said it means connecting with Krishna.
Yeah. I feel that there's always hope, and I'm with someone I can fully trust.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your friend beside you, right? Like how you said earlier, it's like Krishna and Arjun. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, there's always hope. There's always, and you know, this world will always, because it's the nature of this world will always give us moments of not being able to trust someone, or where we feel a bit hopeless. But with Krishna, we can genuinely 100% trust him. And there's always hope when we're connected with him. Whatever's going on, there's always hope. So,
I love that. We've had a follow-up question from Renali. What are the small things we can do every day to connect to Krishna?
yeah, we can chant his names, we can read about him, and I think those small things is also very much what we discussed earlier. Um, what do we like to do, and do it for Krishna? What do you like to do? You like to sew, do some sewing, make something for Krishna. You like graphic designing, get on social media for Krishna. You like teaching, teach Bhagavad-gita. You know, just find those things that we like to do, and do it with some spiritual contribution. Find a way to do what we are good at for others, and that way we'll be able to connect to Krishna through that.
Yeah, I love that. So the last question for today, we've got one from Janitor. She's asking, I like how you mention nuances. I'm very interested in the verbal side of communication. I feel this needs serious development. I feel I lack within all systems, non-verbal.
Sorry, I'll say it more properly because I was typing, not really watching what I was writing. I'm really interested in the non-verbal world. I'm at a point in life where I am bored of talking and repeating myself. I've got a father who's profoundly deaf. I've got a mum with a neurological condition, and she's kind of lost control of her speech and her whole body functioning. I've had to sacrifice my work to make sure that within the systems that we're in, they're not exposed to abuse and neglect, which they have been kind of given for various reasons, non-verbal world in particular. Now I'm very much into trauma and body language. I think there's such a focus on word form. Sorry, I'm probably jumping in just to something completely different. of word, but I come from the trauma perspective, and words are just the sequence of sounds. It's the intention behind them. I think I love the way you picked up on nuances, because I think this is the area that really lacks. We don't really see the body enough. We don't see the tension behind the eyes. We don't see shortened breath in people. We don't see what accelerated speaking means and how things present, and they're so misunderstood. So misunderstood. I don't hear much about the non-verbal. I hear about speaking beautifully and everything going in line with a positive way of doing things, but I'm coming from a different perspective where I think discussions need to be for you to be able to really engage in a positive way of things. You need to address all of those things that are within, that are kind of blocking us and blocking our relationship as well to the divine. And as much as we fake it, the body will come out of the body in an impulsive state at times. This is something that we struggle with on this journey. I just wanted your thoughts on that, maybe coming from different backgrounds to mine, and how you perceive what I've said and what your perspective is on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janita. Yeah, you know, when Arjun was initially having his big crisis, when he saw the other side and he sees that he's about to fight this war, then, you know, his body responds. You know, he starts shaking, he drops his bow, his voice starts choking. His body couldn't hack it. His body started talking to him, like you said, like a traumatic response. And then after experiencing that trauma, Krishna was just there. Krishna was with him. So I think part of this, what you're saying in terms of non-verbal communication, is, can we be with someone, you know, when the trauma is being played out? Can we be with them? And if we can be with them, then we can go on. Then we can empathically go on the journey with them. And just like Krishna did with Arjun, Arjun had this trauma, but Krishna stayed with him, and he went through that journey with him. So yeah, so I think for me, like when we hear about trauma, yeah, it does come out of the body. When it came out of Arjun in his body, and also for us, when it could be because we went through something in our childhood, and as adults, we respond to triggers in through the body, and the body responds in certain ways. And if we become aware, just becoming aware, okay, this is what's happening to me right now. My leg is shaking. Oh, why is my leg shaking? Oh, I'm feeling a twitch. Why am I feeling a twitch? I'm aware of this twitch. Oh, okay, I'm aware of this twitch. And just by becoming a bit more self-conscious and self-aware of what's going on in our own bodies when we're in difficult, triggering, traumatic situations, then we can just become more aligned, and then be able to go on this spiritual journey. And it's all at, and it's at everyone's at a different pace. And so yeah, I think there's a few thoughts. I mean, we could speak hours on this topic, but I think there's just a few thoughts that come to me straight away. That the path of spirituality is not trying to prematurely transcend what happens in the body. I think the path of spirituality is bringing body, mind, and soul all together. Yeah. Hope that makes some sense, Janita. I hope I communicated something there.
No, I liked your response. It's very, very in line. I just like hearing what people say about it. And I might jump in and just correct you somehow, but I really liked your response and your example given. It's actually really, yeah, really on your part. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got Neri saying thank you very much for a lovely talk. So yeah, message there. Yeah, and on that note, I think we can close today's session. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, for sharing your insights from your first Ramayan clip to your struggles with the Mridanga to falling in love with Kirtan. It's been an incredible journey, and thank you so much for taking us on this journey today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Madhu. It was really nice to be with you, and thank you everyone for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for everyone who joined this sunny day. Hope to see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.